In this demonstration, you will learn how to accomplish failover routing using Amazon Route 53. In this failover routing example, we have a registered internet domain, and we're managing it with Amazon Route 53. We have a VPC with two subnets in different availability zones. Each subnet has an identical EC2 instance running a web server with the Mom and Pop Cafe website hosted on it. We want to configure Amazon Route 53 so the HTTP requests go to the instance in Availability Zone 1 as the primary instance, and the instance in Availability Zone 2 as the secondary. If the primary instance goes down for any reason, the secondary instance running in Availability Zone 2 will take over the handling of the request so that the users won't be impacted. In order to configure this, we need to define a Route 53 health check that monitors the status of the primary web server instance. If the health check determines that the primary instance is unreachable, then the record set we defined in the hosted zone will route traffic to the secondary instance instead. The Route 53 health check will also send an alert to our administrator team to inform us about the unreachable instance. Now that we understand the design, let's take a look at how this setup can be accomplished in the AWS Management Console. Navigate to the AWS Management Console. In the search bar, enter and choose EC2 to open the EC2 Management Console. In the left navigation pane, in the Instances section, choose Instances. Two EC2 instances have already been created for us. We can see each instance is running in a different subnet and availability zone. Let's verify that the primary web server is working and that the website is available. Open a new browser tab and paste the public IP address for Cafe Instance 1, followed by /cafe. We'll add /cafe to the end of the domain name because that's where our web app is running. Along with other information about the cafe, notice the server information that is displayed. It shows information about the EC2 instance and the availability zone where it's running. Open another browser tab and paste the public IP address for Cafe Instance 2, followed by /cafe. We need to copy the public IP address of each instance when we configure the Route 53 record sets, so let's leave this view open. Now let's navigate to the Route 53 service dashboard. In the AWS Management Console, from the Services menu, enter and choose Route 53 to open the Route 53 Management Console. Here we have one registered domain and one hosted zone. The first thing that we want to do is define a health check. In the left navigation pane, choose Health Checks. Choose Create Health Check and configure the following options. For the name, enter primary-website-health. For what to monitor, choose Endpoint, and we'll specify the endpoint by IP address. For the IP address, we'll paste the public IPv4 address of Cafe Instance 1. This value can be found in the EC2 console. For the path, enter cafe because that's the URL that loads the web application. Let's expand the advanced configuration area, and because this is a demo, we'll set the request interval to a short period of 10 seconds. Let's also set the failure threshold to 2. The failure threshold is the number of health checks that need to fail before the health check status turns unhealthy. Then we'll leave the other settings as they are and choose Next. Now let's create the alarm portion of the health check. For Get Notified when health check fails, configure the following options. For Create Alarm, choose Yes. For Send Notification to, choose New SNS Topic. For topic name, enter primary-website-health. For recipient email address, enter an email address that you can access. Choose Create Health Check and then we will see that the health check is now defined. It initially has a status of unknown. However, this should be resolved within a few seconds. If we refresh, we will see the status update. Now the status is healthy, which means that the health check verified that it can hit the URL that we defined in the settings, and the web server is responding with an HTTP status code of 200. One thing to do at this point is to check your email and look for the subscription confirmation email. Choose the Confirm Subscription link, which should open a browser page indicating that our subscription is confirmed. Now that we have a health check configured, let's move on to configuring the failover routing that will be initiated when the health check returns in unhealthy status. In the Route 53 console, in the left navigation pane, choose Hosted Zones. The domain name was already created for us. Choose the domain name to display the two records that already exist in this hosted zone. These two records were created when the domain was registered with Route 53. Choose Create Record and configure the following options. For record name, enter www. For record type, choose routes traffic to an IPv4 address and some AWS resources. For value, enter the IP address for Cafe Instance 1, and for TTL seconds, enter 15. For the routing policy, choose Failover from the drop-down list. The failover record type is primary because this is the IP of the primary instance. This routing policy is associated with the health check, so we'll choose the health check that we just defined from the drop-down list. For the record ID, enter Failover Primary. And finally, choose Create Records to save the record set. Now we need to define another record for the secondary web server. Choose Create Record. We'll give it the same name, www. For record type, choose A. For the value, we'll copy the public IP of Cafe Instance 2, and 15 seconds for the TTL. The routing policy is again failover, but this time the failover record type is secondary. The record set doesn't need a health check associated with it because it's the backup. For the record ID, enter Failover Secondary. Now choose Create Records. Now there are 4 record sets in this hosted zone. The 2 A-type record sets are the ones that we just defined. The first is the primary failover record set that has a health check associated with it, and the second is the secondary failover record set. Now let's test this configuration. Let's return to the Cafe website browser tab and reload the URL. Here we see that the primary instance is the one that loads. Notice the availability zone. Now we want to simulate an issue with the first web server by going over to the EC2 page and stopping the primary instance. Return to the AWS Management Console. On the Services menu, enter and choose EC2, and then choose Instances. Choose Cafe Instance 1. From the Instance State menu, choose Stop Instance. In the Stop Instance window, choose Stop. This should cause the health check status to change. Now let's look at the status of the Route 53 health check. On the Services menu, enter and choose Route 53. In the left navigation pane, choose Health Checks. Wait until the status of primary website health is unhealthy. If necessary, periodically choose Refresh. It might take a few minutes for it to update. Notice that the status changed to unhealthy. Now to the Browser tab where you have the website open. Notice the server information before refreshing the page. Notice that the region/availability zone value now displays a different availability zone. For example, US West 2B instead of US West 2A. The failover routing is working. The website was only unresponsive for a few seconds. Specifically, it was unresponsive during the time it took for the health check to fail, given the health check interval of 10 seconds, and 2 health check failures. So after 10 times 2, 20 seconds, the failover routing rules kick in, and the HTTP requests to the cafe domain are now routed to the secondary instance that we specified. As a final step, let's check our email and see whether we received a notification. We should have received an email from AWS Notifications titled Alarm, Primary Website Health, AWS Route 53, with details about what initiated the alarm. It might take a few minutes before the email arrives. We successfully created failover routing using Amazon Route 53. The stopped instance initiated the failed health check, and the health check used the simple notification service to inform administrators through email. This concludes this demonstration of failover routing using Amazon Route 53.